Hi, good afternoon, good morning for those of you farther west than me. This is Penelope Weinberger from AASHTO. We're going to wait a couple more minutes to get started, but I just thought I'd turn on the phone and let you know that we were going to wait a couple more minutes to get started. All right, it's just after 1 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we're going to get started with our Geospatial Online Transportation Users Group webinar. As I said, I'm Penelope Weinberger. We have a great webinar scheduled for you today that Matt Robinson is going to tell you more about, but right now I just wanted to go over a couple of housekeeping things. One is that this webinar is being recorded, so including chat questions, and it will be recorded so that we can publish it on our website, which we'll talk about in a couple minutes. My next note is don't put us on hold, but since all of the listeners, all of the attendees are in listen-only mode, I think if you put us on hold, it would be okay. We still wouldn't be able to hear you, but still it's a terrible practice, and don't do it anyway. And certainly none of my panelists are allowed to do it, because then we'll hear their music. And during our presentations and after our presentations, we'd like your questions, so please type those into the chat bar, and we'll read them aloud for everyone to hear them and for our panelists to answer them. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to Matt Robinson from Michigan. Matt, are you muted? Ah, he's gone. Matt has disappeared. Well, I'm sure Matt will be back in a minute, but in the meantime, I guess we'll continue. So we're going to today have a great webinar, and hopefully Matt will be back to talk more about it soon. We have this welcome that we're having now, an overview. We're going to have some technical presentations by North Carolina DOT staff. Jeremy Aycock from the GIS unit is going to talk about GoNC, give us an overview and an overview of the North Carolina initiatives. And then Lauren East from the North Carolina DOT Division 1 is going to give us a talk on Collector for ArcGIS, updating data collection techniques in the field. And then lastly, but not least at all, Faith Johnson, who is a GIS specialist at NCDOT Transportation Asset Analytics, will give a presentation on leveraging ArcGIS online for data collection. And those are going to be really interesting. And please think of your questions during and after those presentations so that we can have a robust discussion about it. After that, we'll have a more general question and answer period. So I want to tell you a little bit about GOTUG, why we're here. I mean, of course, all of you registered because you got an email from me that went out on our new distribution list. So you may have been to a webinar before, and you may be familiar with the history and the future of GOTUG, but I'll go through it quickly. The chairs of our steering committee are Becky Helm from Utah DOT and Matt Robinson from the Michigan DOT, who's supposed to be giving this talk instead of me, but he somehow got knocked off. He had some technical difficulties with his connection earlier. I am Penelope Weimerger down there in the lower right corner. I'm the Transportation Data Program Manager at AASHTO, and I work for Matt Hardy, who's the Program Director for Policy and Performance. That's all I'm going to say about that. So what is GOTUG? The Geospatial Online Are you back, Matt?
I got back.
Hey! We're on the third
sorry about
slide.
that. I got a conference
man.
internet.
That's okay.
I going to take it where you left off.
That's what we figured happened.
All right. So a little background on GOTUG. It started back in the summer of 2015. We've been doing it almost 2 years now. It doesn't seem like that long. But as Penelope probably mentioned before, it's led by myself and Becky Jum at Utah DOT. And it was born out of the AASHTO Innovation Initiative, which was a project that focused on ArcGIS Online and how it was used in state DOTs. And it's currently a working group under the Standing Committee on Planning and the Subcommittee on Data within AASHTO. And our group,
I forgot to update us. That's not where we are at all anymore.
Oh, did we move?
We moved. We're under data.
Okay.
I fixed it on the next slide, but not on this slide. I'll have to make a note to fix that.
All right.
Never mind that. Moving on.
Moving on. So GOTUG's goal is to provide a platform for ongoing development of online GIS technology and to try and foster some collaboration between the DOTs and some other agencies who can benefit from work that's already being done. And we have our steering team listed here on the slide. And so they've been working hard to bring you this kind of content over the past couple of years to get a great group of presenters lined up for you every quarter. So you can go on the next slide. All right. Are we on the GOTUG slide? Why GOTUG?
Yeah, we are.
Thanks. I lost my internet, so I can't follow along on the slides right now. So why was GOTUG formed in the first place? So Utah's work with ArcGIS Online, they were one of the first DOTs to start implementing that technology. Their UPlan site was a catalyst to get that AASHTO Innovation Initiative started, which allowed a lot of DOTs to start to use ArcGIS Online technology. And so a lot of DOTs took part in that. And after that project was over and a lot of the DOTs had a chance to use the technology, those participants identified a need to continue sharing how they've been using this technology and also to expand it out to include other technology that didn't have to be necessarily Esri specific. So because of that, GOTUG was established at the close of the UPlan projects, and we're trying to build a knowledge base now for online GIS technology within DOTs through these webinar sessions and providing resources through our website. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. I think Penelope is going to cover kind of our outreach initiative and our website and how you guys can get signed up to get some additional information about our webinars.
So we had a change since our last webinar, and what we've done is on the gotug.transportation.org website, which is where our webinars are posted after we have presented them, and I think we're posted up to date at this point. There's also a link to sign on to our new Gov Delivery, so it's much easier to get email about webinars that we're going to be presenting in the future. So that distribution list is for bulletins, information, and you can sign yourself up on the link. And the email address, gotug@transportation.org, is now for you guys to suggest webinar topics, hint, hint, and give feedback to GOTUG leadership. So if you just go to gotug.transportation.org, you'll see that link sitting in the middle, https publicdelivery.com account-subscriber new, and you can get on the GOTUG distribution list. We also do these webinars, and we do some in-person stuff. We have a proposal in for GIST to talk about the GOTUG initiative, and hopefully they'll select it so that we'll have a session at the GIST conference coming up in Little Rock, Arkansas in March. So as I just mentioned, as I surprised Matt with the information that we're actually under the AASHTO Data Committee now, and some of the things that the Data Committee is able to do is to increase the visibility of GIS and geospatial data issues, and it serve as a technical resource group for all of AASHTO members. So, our agenda today, Matt, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks. So we have a great lineup of presentations today. I think Penelope went over our agenda earlier, so we're going to kick it off with Jeremy Aycock giving us a brief overview of what North Carolina's been doing with their online GIS technology, and then he'll introduce the rest of our speakers as their presentations come up.
All right, good morning and afternoon for everybody who's here. My name is Jeremy Aycock. I am a business analyst for North Carolina Department of Transportation, and I work for the GeoService Solutions Group, which administers GoNC, which is basically what we brand our web-based GIS. So the topics that we're going to discuss today are an overview of the GoNC responsibilities, some recent project accomplishments that we've had, and some current projects we're developing, and then what we are looking forward to working on in the future. So what exactly is GoNC? As you can see, it's a website, basically, and it stands for GIS Online at NCDOT. And it's any tools and resources that support NCDOT geospatial data, as well as hosting some other data sets that work well with NCDOT. And it's accessed by the GoNC portal, which you see a screenshot of that side on the other side of the screen. And yeah, as soon as you type in that web address, that's where you go. So mainly what we do with GoNC is publish and manage geoservices provided by the GIS unit. And then we also deploy and support geoservices that are created by other NCDOT business units, such as our traffic survey or orthoimagery or any of the other ones or divisions. We also help develop and deploy and maintain geoservices to support custom applications, and we'll talk about a few of those custom applications today, such as RoadNC and Road Characteristics Editor. We also support all of our AGL users within NCDOT, and we document any services that we use in ArcGIS Online, such as Collector, Survey 123, etc., to help get our staff members up to speed on how to use our web tools. So give it a little overview of some metrics. We have over 1,000 NCDOT employees with active AGL accounts, and within 2017, we actually added 300 employees. So we've really seen a great increase this year in ArcGIS Online usability. We have over 200 layers shared to the public. That could be either map, image, or feature services. And then we also have 100 web maps with those layers in it that are also shared to the public. And just this year, we've added over 50 contractors that are contracted under each of our business units that are actively using GoNC for data collection. So the current trends that we have at NCDOT is training or onboarding new business units to host and manage their own geo services. In the past, it's been kind of like on a request they come to us to help them set up their GIS data, and then we usually would manage it afterwards. But given that it's becoming more popular based on how much we have available at our disposal, we've decided to kind of let the business units take control of their own data. We've also really taken off on web and mobile data collection in the last year to 2 years, and we're going to have a lot of examples of that. And we are working to expand our SharePoint integration. SharePoint is one of the Microsoft tools that we're using a lot for showing data out on our website. We're also trying to geo-enable our NCDOT construction project data. We've had a big initiative to try to spend money faster. Apparently, we have a big surplus at the moment with money, and our construction projects haven't really been moving as fast as we've been getting money. And we're also working on customized application development using Web App Builder, and then using GP services and other web tools within these custom applications. So next I'll talk about a few recently completed projects. I have 3 I'm going to go over briefly. Utilizing Collector for ADA curb ramp inventories. I'm also going to talk about some remnant properties and how we set up an application for the right-of-way team to try to advertise and sell these properties. And then also our Road NC project suite, which is our straight line diagram viewer and analysis tools. So just get started with the curb ramp inventory. This was sent to us last year. It was requested for us to create an application for field crews to more efficiently survey and report on ADA compliance for curb ramps. As many of you know, these regulations change over time, so a lot of the ramps that we've had didn't meet the new ADA standards, and so we had to go back and resurvey them and figure out which ones need to be updated. So the requirements that the business sent to us was to be able to perform a survey on a mobile device and not need a lot of training. They wanted one data set accessible to both field crew and office staff that was synced, so office staff could see the updates in real time. They also wanted to minimize the free-form data entry, so your records are all there, so you don't fat finger something and miss data. They also wanted to be able to see who and when made edits to data, and they wanted to be able to see the most up-to-date aerial imagery, our existing state-maintained roads, and then any intersection surveys that were done before. So, and a couple more. They wanted to be able to take pictures of the intersections and curb ramps, and then they wanted to be able to collect data when disconnected from the internet. And then they wanted to be able to also see orthoimagery that was not provided in a service when offline. And they didn't really care very much about GPS accuracy as long as they had some good reference layers to work off of. So the components that we had we used ArcGIS Online for this and Collector, and it had to set up accounts for everybody that was going to be doing the surveys, and then we created a special user group for all these surveyors, and then create a web map for them that contained an editable feature layer, which we called the curb ramp inventory, and we set up all the schema for that, and then added in the reference services that they asked for. And then this was the first time we've actually done any side loading of orthoimagery, which it turned out to work pretty well. So we basically created or put them on a flash drive, and we're able to load these files into the devices and then access them through Collector. So the data design that we set up was to have one feature class containing point locations of curve ramps and associated attribute data, and additionally, the feature class supported attachments. And as you can see, this is how we set it up below. Another interesting thing about this project was that they wanted to have some pre-filled entries based on what kind of conditions that they're running across. So the feature values indicate domains to validate data entry and subtypes to support edit template and default values, and the subtypes are powered by the compliant domain. So as you can see under here, we've got subtype code 1 has all these pre-entered, subtype code 2 has something different, and then 3 was left blank. And the reason we did all this is because in Collector, whenever you're doing data collection, you're trying to get, when you're out in the field, you're trying to get as many points as you can and get all the information correct. So if you're at an intersection that has maybe 4 of the same type of curve ramp, then you can quickly replicate your attributes and move on to the next intersection instead of having to go and fill out the form for each one. And I will show you a little demo of how that works. All right. So basically what they have here is this is the intersection that was previously surveyed to be a state-maintained road with ramps. And these green dots here are all of the surveys that they took and showed whether or not they're compliant, non-compliant, or missing, and we're able to enter any of this data and also add attachments to it. So we can see the curb ramp here. It's actually right outside of our office. So it worked really well. They've been able to, we've had one division pretty much complete their survey so far, and they've actually taken the initiative to help out other divisions to get started, and we haven't really had to offer too much support. So it's been great to see that a division themselves can train another division to get started on this and not really need much of our help. So, all right, go back. So, another project that we were working on is the NCDOT remnant property. In 2015, we created a geospatial data set of remnant property and made it available through our ArcGIS Online, and created a SharePoint site that linked that data to tabular data below. And at that time, the maintenance process wasn't defined, and as a result, the data became out of date. And we didn't really have a maintenance process for us to update it, so we decided to create an application to give the right-of-way group their own ability to manage their data set. And so we developed a solution to support the maintenance of the remnant property data, as well as to adapt this business process to support the existing SharePoint site that we created a couple years ago. So the key features of this application is that it's designed for non-technical staff to carry out the requested tasks, and its editing performed in a map-type interface. They didn't want to have any GIS software required for editing, considering that they didn't really have the greatest PCs to work with. And they wanted to have more than one user to be able to access it, but they did not want the editable layer to be accessed by the public. And they want to be able to add, update, and delete property points in the data set, and then also see who and when changes were made to the property information. And we can show that application. We used AGOL for that. Sorry, bring this one up. And one of the interesting ways that we were able to work out the public view versus the private view was to create a feature layer that was editable, and then we created a hosted view of that editable layer that was not editable, and then we also created, we filtered that view to only show, certain properties that were available. So we will open up, where is the map? Right here. So the map itself, this is exactly what they use to work with. As it's loading. And they go in here daily and update the data as properties are bought and sold. And as you can see here, they have available properties and then properties that they haven't quite made available yet. And then they're able to figure out where, sorry, my mouse is acting strange, these properties are by, you can search by tax parcels or transportation improvement project numbers. So if we have an improvement project going out and we have extra, property that we want to get rid of, they can go exactly where all that construction's going. And if I can zoom in, if my mouse will let me. Nope, don't know why it's doing that. There we go, I can use this, there we go. Don't know why this is not wanting to zoom in anymore. That's really strange. But anyway, so they can click on a location in a tax parcel map and then enter in all the data they need. And like I said, we had a public view as well. The public view is live. It's actually using the same data set as the editable layer, but it's filtered to only show properties whose stats are available, and it's also not editable. I'll show you that one as well. Where is it? There we are. So, this is the public version of the map. As you can see, it doesn't show any of the hold properties, and then it also lists a lot of the properties, or all the available properties down here, and shows how many acres it is, and then they classified it by A, B, or C, whether, how valuable the property is. So, if I wanted to look at this 19-acre property here, I can click that, and this is going to zoom in, hopefully, to the property on the map. And then I'm able to zoom out and kind of get a better feel for it, and then get more information about the property, excuse me, the property itself. And yep, it's been very, very helpful. So another example of what we've been working on the last year or so is the RoadNC application. The RoadNC application is a product suite that combines AGOL mapping service and a customized straight line diagram viewer to give users more efficient ways of viewing roadway event data. And so we use three products. We have map services that we create in ArcGIS Online, as well as a data viewer, which is a web map created in ArcGIS Online. And then we link those to the straight line diagram. Actually, the straight line diagram also contains the map services. There's 4 map services that were created in support of this application. The road network used is different than our quarterly published data that we offer to the public for download or is used in other GIS services. This is actually the daily dump of our data. So if anything is changed, it's going to be up there the next day. These services can also be used in any applications that supports the use of map services. We've started using these services in a lot of other maps just because of the way that it's symboled and then, just how current the data is. And so the data viewer is built upon ArcGIS Online. It's an easy way to view our statewide roadway data, and it's simple to use. Let's see. And so if you use the data viewer, if you hit any of the highlighted segments, the pop-up was customized to provide a hyperlink that brings in the selected road segment into the SLD viewer. So here's the snapshot of what our SLD viewer looks like. It was created by Transcend Spatial Solutions, and then we further customized it within NCDOT. And the bars here represent different assets that we have or road features that we have along the roadway. And then the stick here basically is showing how it lines up with mileage with the bars down here. So I'm going to try to demonstrate that. So our Road NC product suite is right on the front page of our portal. So you can click this and look for the data viewer, the Road NC viewer here. So when we open this viewer map, we'll be able to see a lot of different roads, and I can go straight to a road here. So that's where it is. If I click on this feature here, it gives me all the information, and then it also gives me a link to the Road NC SLD viewer. When that comes up, it's going to show certain sticks that have preset that they want to have on there, and then we can also add more sticks there. So I can add, for example, structures. And I can add that in the stick as well as the bar. And so now you'll see that there is structure down there, and we don't have any structures here, but if we scroll across on the mileage, at some point we're going to run across one. And there's one. So this would be the structure here. You can see, and then down here you'll see that the structure is also here. So if we want to figure out what exactly that is, I can click on it, and it'll tell me. So it's a bridge. But if I wanted to actually see the bridge, we've also incorporated ArcGIS Maps, Google Maps, and Google Street View into the SLD viewer. So if I open up this, it'll tell me where I'm at on the line. And if I open up the Google Street View, it'll actually put me right there on it. And as I move this, it'll move me back and forth on the roadway. So I thought that's a pretty neat tool for people in the office trying to look at assets or road features, and they don't have to go out in the field and check it out. So yeah, that's our SLD viewer. So briefly talk about some current projects that we're working on. We're trying to get GeoService and AGOL metadata standards and guidelines set, and that's probably the best representation for the picture beside us. It's kind of a hair-pulling experience. There's a lot of locations, and as many of you know, where information can be put into GeoServices, but they don't always carry over from one place to the other. So we're trying to figure out a method to be able to get all of the required ISO format metadata elements in each of the locations, REST element or the AGOL information page, or the metadata XML. We're trying to get all that streamlined so we're not having to go in and enter it in every location that we have data. We've got numerous asset inventory projects where we're collecting data, and we're going to have more examples of that coming up. We're working on well, for example, for the asset inventory projects, we're doing pipe inventories, litter contracts, traffic monitoring devices, pavement conditions, and more. We're also trying to work on a regional environmental modeling data center, data store. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but the goal is to streamline project delivery through the increased use of GIS data, tools, and analysis through all phases of project delivery process, and that includes environmental analysis in the NEPA process. And so what we are doing as the GeoServices group is to provide support by identifying key data used in project delivery, and also helping NCDOT get some of these data sets that aren't GeoServices pushed up to web services. So a lot of the data they're using for these environmental modeling projects are stored on people's PCs in remote offices, and so it's hard to get this data back and forth to people. We're also working on improving or implementing road characteristics editor, which is called Roads and Highways Event Editor in Esri Talk. I can show you one of those. But basically, each one of our business units has the opportunity now to get one of these event editors set up with individual layers they need to work on. So for this one, this is Traffic Survey Group, and so they're looking at I'm not sure exactly, and I don't want to go too far into it, but they're able to look at their data and make edits to it as needed. We're also working on HiCAM's project, which is a customized web application that helps analyze construction projects' percent completedness with the percent of the budget that is allocated that's been spent. So the goal there is to identify areas where money is being overspent or where projects haven't been getting the resources they need. I'm going back out of here again. So we can filter, and if this mouse works better, this would be great. Why is it going backwards on me? We can filter by start year or contract type, and we can look at so basically what you're seeing here, anything that's green shows that the construction completeness and the financial costs are within where they need to be. So everything's looking good with that project. If you look at some of these that are red, you see that the cost is going over the percent completeness on construction. And this is what they were looking at, or looking to find. This one, construction's, I don't know why it would be yellow. I would assume that's probably a good thing if it's costing less than you need, but it still shows that where, you know, the budget is not being met or being overmet. And this has been really helpful for, or we're hoping it's going to be really helpful for regional planning and municipal planning organizations to figure out where they need to focus their efforts. And the last one, one of the last ones, or the last one we're talking about today is the GIS data clip and chip. We've had a request from the GIS unit to figure out a way to provide customers with the ability to download some of our data, but not download statewide, an entire statewide data set. Since we're, you know, we have some of the largest road inventories of any state. It takes a long time to if you wanted to download a road network for your county, it would take a long time to download the entire state data set. So what we've done is taken the example model right out of Esri and published. It runs a model builder, and we published that as a geoprocessing service, and then pretty much wrapped a web app builder application around it. And so this is it's still a proof of concept at the moment, but we can select different layers, and so far we only have 5 in here, and then we can draw a box and execute. So that will take care of all of the structures in Wayne County, and it'll give us a zip file to go find. That I can open. All right. So what's next for web-based GIS at NCDOT? We are working on incorporating Geo Event Server for real-time location tracking. Some of the examples of the applications to this technology would be tracking ferries, the location of the ferries throughout their route, and then also mowing contracts. All of our mowers now have GPS-enabled devices on their machines, and they're trying to figure out a way of mowing. We can see where they are with their mowing contracts. If they're falling behind on their project. We're also trying to incorporate Web App Builder more in customized web applications. We've been getting more requests for more custom applications to be created, and so we're really getting started with that. And then we also we have a spatial data viewer that we created about 5 years ago using Silverlight technology that's getting outdated, and so we're planning on overhauling that spatial data viewer using the Web App Builder. And finally, we have we've been trying to improve our GIS data portal. Right now, GoNC is a portal of sorts, and then we also have another website called Connect NCDOT that allows for people to download data sets there as well. But we really want to expand the capabilities of a portal to include as many formats of GIS data as we can in one site, and then give people the ability to consume that data any way they want. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, you can contact GIS help at NCDOT, and then my personal email is jtacock@ncdot.gov. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have any questions?
If there are any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat bar, or else we'll know that. So we have a question. How many ArcGIS online usernames does NCDOT have available to use?
I'm not sure I quite understand. I mean, ArcGIS online usernames. So we basically, we just set people up with their email and use their email address, like whatever their from using GoTug. Okay. But yeah, we just set up users with through their email account, and there's over 1,000 users there. So if I didn't answer that question correctly, please let me know.
I think he wants to know what the capacity is. How many could you have? Do you know what your top number is?
I don't think that we have a capacity. I have to ask my supervisor about that, but it doesn't seem like we've had a limit set on us yet. I mean, we just added 675 contractors in a batch just recently in preparation for a storm event that we were thinking that people were going to take some storm damage assessments. So the sky's the limit at this point, from what I can tell.
Okay. And there's another question. With the SLD viewer, there's so many capabilities. How do you get your customers to make the leap from using Go and See to something more complex?
That is a good question, and it's a challenge. Right now, I mean, the SLD viewer is kind of on the upper end of our, non-GIS users' capabilities, and so really, I would say, just getting people involved and then providing support as often as you can, and really we just try to figure out, based on our judgment, whether or not whoever's asking to use things more complex it would be capable of doing it, and if not, we try to figure out some other business application that they could use, or help them out any way we can.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Jeremy. We're going to save any more questions for Jeremy. If you have them, please type them into chat. And we're going to move on to Lauren East's presentation on Collector for ArcGIS, updating data collection techniques in the field. I will turn it right over to you now, Lauren.
Okay. Can we see it?
We see your presenter version.
Screen one. Okay, that's right. I have to change the screen too.
We don't want to learn all your secrets too far ahead.
Okay. Are we good? Can we?
We are good.
Okay, sweet.
Let her rip.
Okay. Hey everyone, my name is Lauren East. I'm an engineer technician for Division 1 NCDOT. I have a lot of duties, but one of them includes updating and managing some of our GIS inventory. So that's how I came about Go and See. So me and Jeremy are very familiar with each other. I call him a lot for help and questions. And he has set up accounts for a lot of people in our division, and so they use Go and See, the website, but we've also taken it to another level, and we use ArcGIS Collector through Go and See. So that's what I'll be talking about today. Let's see. Here we go. Right now, we are using the Collector application on iPads. A lot of the county maintenance engineers have the Windows tablets, but for some reason they're like this. I think it's Windows 10. I can't remember correctly, but it does not allow that version of the application. So if whoever has an iPad, we are using those with the app. So not many people are using it, but we're hoping to get more use out of it because it is easy to use. It's nice. You know, we do have Trimble units that we use to collect data. We did that in the past, and we're still using them, but it's so much easier, you know, to just set up a map real quick through Go and See, and if we need to collect something, just use the iPad, make sure it's charged, and we have service, and we're good to go. So that's definitely a pro for that. Right now, we use the Collector app to plot core samples. We just did those Monday, actually, our latest. We went and, well, I'll tell more about that later, sorry. So we did core samples. We also have used the Collector for pavement treatment. So one of our technicians rides out and will check the roads. He has a list of roads from the county maintenance engineers, and he'll go look at them and assess them with the iPad and mark different things on that. And we have also have the Collector for storm damage assessment. With the core samples, we go to the spot that, you know, we are going out and digging the core, and while the samples are being done, someone uses the iPad and plots a point, and then from there, you know, we fill out the information, the date, what county we're in, what route we're on, our to and from. So, I mean, we get a Latin long, but we also like a more general description. The more data, the better. What lane we're in, whether it's eastbound, westbound, all that. DCP number, which we fill that in when we get back in the office, what core number that is for the road, and the core length. And after that, we take a picture of each core sample, and it's tagged to the point. So I guess we just started this summer, actually, and I guess before it was all done by hand, and, you know, having to keep up with, if you do 20 samples on one road, that's a lot to keep up with, and taking pictures with the camera and making sure you know which one goes with which. So it's definitely made it good for us. Oops. And here's just some pictures I took Monday. They're digging the core, and then the other person is plotting the points. So that just kind of shows what we do. And here's an example of what our map looks like through Go and See. So all the yellow diamonds are core samples that have been done on different routes for different counties. And this is just a screenshot, so I can't go to that. But if I was to zoom in and click on each spot, I'd have a drop down of all the data associated with each point. And here's an example of some of the information. These are the ones we did Monday. You could see the photos attached to it, and like I said, we leave the DCP number out. That was the first and only core for that road, and that one was really long, so it was 16 inches, and there's more information above there, but I couldn't fit it all in the screenshot. But that's it for the core samples. Like I said, we just started doing that this summer, and it has really been helpful to us. And I'm sure we'll find more things that we can add on later, but for right now, that's the majority of the information we have for that. And for our pavement treatment collection, we have resurfacing funds and preservation funds that are allowed to all 14 counties, and so that you know, can be a lot of work. So we have some technicians that help our county maintenance engineers. They go ride and look at roads, and before everything was done by hand, but you know, just recently we decided to do this with GoNC and create a map that they could use when they're riding. They can just go and mark the routes with a color-coded line, and it will tell whether it's preservation or going to be resurfaced, and it's each fiscal year has a different color, and then it's just marked with a dashed line if it's preservation or a solid line for a resurface. And we also mark the deficiencies on each route, if there are any potholes that need to be replaced before the road is treated, or any pipes that need to be replaced as well. And then after we fill all that information out, we can export the data and in spreadsheet format, and we can send it to our county maintenance engineers to review, and if they agree with all the recommendations that the technician has made, then we add it to our plan, and it gets entered in to HMIP to be done. So here's kind of an example of some roads that were chosen to be treated, which here it doesn't show that they're marked different, but we do, when they go back on GoNC, they are marked with a hash line to differentiate resurface and preservation. And each of those features has a drop down, so they like what type of treatment needs to be done, and if there are any notes, again, to and froms, county, date, all that information is entered in. And here's an example of what this was, just 1 year, 2020 through 2021 preservation. These were some routes that were marked on the iPad through Collector, and this was an exported spreadsheet that went back to review. So there were a lot of routes marked, and as you can see, we have a lot of the information here. It, you know, records the length in miles because it is a line feature, and we mark the width while we're out there. We just measure and mark it so that that information's already there. And this is a screenshot, so I can't go back and forth, but we have notes done that can help. You know, it just really eliminates any errors, or still, you know, eliminates room for error, and we have more capability to add information, and the more information the better for us. And onto our storm damage assessment. We have not used this in the field. I believe so 2016, October of then, we had Hurricane Matthew hit, and I was working with Jeremy to get this up and running before that, but it didn't happen in time. Just a lot going on, so we did not have it ready to go in the field, but we had it set up, and I used it through GoNC to enter in all the spots where roads were closed, roads were flooded, any kind of damage, pipes washed out. So this one we have not had any use in the field, but we are ready to use it now, and it was created in hopes that, you know, the CMEs or supervisors could mark the spots as they saw them, take pictures, record all the information that we needed, because when we entered it in via desktop, we were just going by emails, you know, spreadsheets that people had sent in, so it was a lot of information at one time, whereas now if we were to have an event, we would go out and assess it with the iPad, or, I mean, you could use your phone, but right now we're just doing it via iPad. But here's an example of all the damage that Division 1 encountered from Hurricane Matthew, and this is just what we had recorded. It could have been more. But so the different stars represent if the condition of the road had more information associated with it, what type of damage, whether it was flooding, washout, all that. But we tried to mark it and send it in as if the road was fully blocked, if it was hazardous, and maybe DOT could get through to access stuff, and if it was navigable for the public. So this was the first go around, so we obviously learned some things that we wanted to change and add for the next time, but it was just a run through this last time. We haven't had to use it since. And that was it for Division 1. We're hoping to find some more things, and it's growing. A lot of people like the use of it. Like I said, it's really easy to use, and it's so nice to have information that we can transfer to a spreadsheet and all that. So if there's any questions or comments, I'll take them now.
I have a couple questions from the attendees. One is, what have you discovered is the biggest challenge for implementing Collector into your business processes?
Okay. The biggest challenge would be right now you can go offline with the Collector, but we have yet to do that. So right now we run on the cell phone service, and our county covers a lot of area, or our division covers a lot of area, and some of that area does not have good cell phone service or reception. So we have run into issues where we would have to wait a while. Like for the core samples, we were on one road that it just took forever to download the data, and we had it where we had entered it in and hit submit several times. So when I came back in the office, we had 3 spots at that one, which it's easy to fix. Just go in and delete the extra. But definitely, I think the biggest challenge would be service, cell phone service, and I know that we can go offline. We just haven't done that yet. It is capable though, so that would be that question.
Okay, and then there's one more question, and that is, what percentage of your data used by Collector is hosted in Esri's cloud versus stored on site in an enterprise geodatabase?
I'm not 100% sure on that. As far as I know, everything is backed up in the cloud. Right now, we host it through GoNC, and once it's on there, I will export the data for us, our division, and have a backup. So I'm not for sure about the cloud information.
Okay. All right, I think we're going to turn it over to Faith Johnson at North Carolina DOT's Transportation Asset Analytics Group. Faith's going to talk about leveraging ArcGIS Online for data collection, and I'm going to turn it over to you right now. And it's all yours.
Okay. Actually, let me just show my, I don't know if I did that right. I'm trying to show my
application, if it's just a PowerPoint presentation. That's what you want. All right, beautiful.
All right.
Take it away.
Okay, so I really wanted to talk to you about, how we're leveraging ArcGIS Online, or as really synonymous with GoNC for our organization, for data collection and data maintenance. So with the advent of AGOL, we now have a tool that overnight has completely expanded the use of GIS from just being held with the GIS professionals in the central unit and some other individuals scattered across the state, like Lauren and myself, to having pretty much every part of the organization at every level using GIS. So in an organization of several thousand, you can't find a single group or unit without some AGL users in it. So it's been really nice. And so I work in the Transportation Asset Analytics unit, so I'm at a central business unit. So a little bit different from Jeremy and Lauren, but we all kind of work together when we're doing stuff like this. So these are kind of some of the ways that we've been working with the organization to use ArcGIS Online. So I really want to try and think about ArcGIS Online as like a multi-use tool when it comes to data collection and data maintenance. It can be used as a communication tool to review and verify data from enterprise systems. It can also be used for online data maintenance to update data directly through AGOL. And finally, it can be used to collect data out in the field. So with the different uses of AGOL, the complexity increases in the amount of setup, configuration, overhead, training, and resources required. So we'll see that as we go through some of these examples. But also, I think the payoff increases as well. So first, to kind of talk about using AGOL as a communication tool for data collection and data maintenance. So these are just kind of like general workflows that are going to be like supported by the examples we're going to go over. They might be a little bit different depending on what you're trying to do. But so as a communication tool, but basically, actually think, let's see here. I think I lost a couple slides in there. So I'm just going to talk about what I did have in the presentation before I deleted it out somehow. Let me see, maybe it's in my printout one. And it's not there either. But what we basically did is we had a county approach us and tell us that they wanted to verify their unpaved road mileage. So this is something that our unit maintains in the central database, but it's not always very accurate because we don't always get the documentation telling us that a road's been paved. So what we did was we created a list of the unpaved roads and passed it on to the Rockingham County Maintenance Engineer for him to look at and tell us, did that just break away for you guys? Can you still see my screen?
We can see the beginning of the presentation, but not in slideshow anymore. There you go, back in slideshow now.
Okay. So to support the list, which is kind of just not really a good visual aid, we created a web map using data that was already published in ArcGIS Online and kind of calling out the roads that were unpaved. So we published the web map and shared it with the county maintenance engineer, and he was able to go through and just look at the roads and verify them and then mark on the actual spreadsheet what needed to be corrected. And then he sent the spreadsheet back to us, and we were able to make the changes directly to the enterprise data. So that's kind of using it like more of like a communication tool. All right, now to talk about using it for online data maintenance. So this is kind of the next level up. So the first step is going to be to create the geodatabase in ArcGIS. And then you're going to publish it to ArcGIS Online, which is going to be hosting it in the cloud. And then you're going to have your users maintaining the data through a web map. And then finally, and this can be kind of a cyclical process, you can extract the data from AGOL, which allows you to do more stuff to the data outside of ArcGIS Online using ArcGIS and scripting. So you can analyze the data, run some QA/QC procedures, do some batch update, etc. So the example for this one is material suppliers. So the materials and test unit in DOT maintains locations and information about asphalt, fine aggregate, coarse aggregate, and concrete suppliers. And it's used by the organization to find the best available resource for construction and rehabilitation of pavement. But it's also something that's regulated by the Department of Justice to prevent monopolies from forming. So it's something we have to keep up with. We have to maintain a current list of it. So the source data for this was spreadsheets with coordinates, which made it hard to maintain an accurate list of the locations because the only information was just the XY coordinates and there was no visual representation. So it's, other than meeting the federal mandate, it really wasn't that useful. So our first step to kind of bring it into ADOL and maintain the data there was first to create a geodatabase. So you can see this is what we created out of the spreadsheet. This has the individual supplier type, as individual feature classes. The next step was to publish the data to ADOL. So a couple of things I just want to make note of is I like to turn on the export for the feature layer because a lot of the people that use the data are not GIS savvy. So that way they can still get just a simple table of the data to look at. And the other thing is that instead of publishing it under our asset analytics account, we publish it under the materials and test unit account. That way they have the ability to change settings and make those kind of adjustments they need to because they're really the data owners. So on the bottom left you can see the data kind of looks similar to how it did in ArcMap. Moving on from there, the materials and test unit is able to maintain the data directly in ADOL. So the things that they're doing are making corrections to the attributes and especially the locations. So what we had before was just the XY coordinates. Now they go in, they turn on the imagery, and they're moving the points around to match where they really are. And then they can also like add new suppliers or take suppliers away as they close down throughout the year. So since the spreadsheet is still the official record that goes to the Department of Justice, it's also updated alongside the map. So it's a little bit redundant, but we've kind of done some things to ease that redundancy. So one of the things we do is an annual update. So we do the annual update outside of ArcGIS Online. So there's a data freeze and extraction, and what happens is the materials and test unit, they don't have any GIS professionals in their unit, so they'll request an annual update from us. And they'll send us a new spreadsheet. And at that point, they're going to stop editing in ArcGIS Online because we don't want to be making changes to the data in two different places. And the purpose of having this annual update is to give materials and test unit a chance to make bulk updates that they didn't want to make individually to each point in ADOL. So for example, maybe they took some time to review all the types of fine aggregates that each plant supplied and updated the spreadsheet. Another reason we want to do that annual update is to make sure that we have consistency between what's submitted to the Department of Justice and what the public sees in ArcGIS Online. So the automated process that we just use Python scripting for adds any new points that were in the spreadsheet that didn't happen to show up in ArcGIS Online because they were missed. It removes points from ArcGIS Online that are not in the spreadsheet, and it also updates all the attributes based on what's in the spreadsheet. So we're still kind of like treating the spreadsheet as the official record. However, for existing suppliers, the geometry source is in ADOL is the official record, and the attributes come from the spreadsheet. And this is important because we're basically saying that although the spreadsheet is the official record, the ADOL data is more reliable for coordinate information. We don't want the materials and test people to be moving points in ADOL and then trying to hand type the coordinates into the spreadsheet. So we're kind of taking a mesh of the two data sources together at this point. And that just makes it a little bit less error prone for the coordinates to derive them based on the location of the point. And then finally, after that automated process, we just republish the data to ADOL, and materials and tests can resume data maintenance. So another example of using ArcGIS Online for online data maintenance was a project we did with the Division 5 office to build an inventory of pavement markers and striping. So the pavement markers are the little reflective pieces of material in the middle of the road that shine back at you at night to help you stay in your lane. And then the striping is obviously just the paint on the road. So basically we were using GIS analysis and enterprise road network with event data from traffic, road inventory, and pavement sources to build an estimated inventory of these assets. So for the pavement markers, the criteria developed was we should have pavement markers on all primary roads and ramps, paved, secondaries if they're not in a subdivision, and the traffic volume is at least 8,000. And then the quantity is basically 7 markers per 10th mile per lane. And then it's slightly different for pavement striping. Again, nothing on unpaved roads, but we don't want to have it on any subdivision roads and also no dead-end roads that are under a mile. And then the calculation is linear feet of marker per mile assigned based on the number of lanes, if it's divided, and if it has a continuous turn lane. So we had a few different formulas working together. So the idea was we kind of, do the GIS analysis and come up with an initial inventory and then look at it on the map and have the division office kind of verify to see if it's right, because they know these roads. They can just look at the map. They don't even have to go to them to know it needs to be changed. So just a few examples. Here's one that this road got classified as having striping that probably shouldn't have any striping. Maybe they decided that this road is something that a lot of people might cut through, so it does have striping on it already, and it should have striping. And then maybe they might just want to change a type of striping from long life to paint on this road because it has a lot of, because it doesn't have as much traffic. And this is what the map of the marker inventory looks like. So when we publish the data, we keep the original estimate fields there and intact, but not visible. We turn off the visibility to the editor. So that way we can still go back and compare what the final calculations are to what we originally estimated and see, through that ground truthing process if we needed to adjust the criteria at all, or if the process was worthwhile, if it's something that can really even be analyzed and estimated. So just kind of, again, what the process would be, then looking at the map and, finding some areas where they might see, these look like segments that should have markers, but for whatever reason, maybe the traffic data was not present, so they didn't get classified correctly. All right, so now for the grand finale, would like to talk about using AGL for mobile data collection. So it took us a long time to get here because we're a Windows shop, kind of what Lauren was talking about earlier. So Collector doesn't work on anything before Windows 10, and it took our organization a long time to release Windows 10. So we had the hardware, we were just waiting for the updated operating system. So prior to having Windows 10, we were relying on ArcPad to do our mobile data collection. But the integration that Collector has with AGOL eliminates a lot of the work associated with setting up and managing projects in ArcPad. And Collector as an application is far more intuitive, so we're really grateful to finally be at this point where we can start phasing out ArcPad and start using Collector. So here's kind of the general high-level workflow for using AGOL for mobile data collection. So again, similar to online data maintenance, you're going to create your geodatabase in ArcGIS, publish it to AGOL. The difference here is there's going to be a lot more configuration involved if you're going to be ultimately using the data in Collector. Then you're going to be using tablets to collect data out in the field. And off to the side, you might be taking data out to analyze, QA, QC, or report on it so that you can leverage some of the tools available in ArcGIS and scripting that aren't available through ArcGIS Online. And then when your data collection period is over, you can do additional post-processing in ArcMap. you don't want to do this while they're collecting data because you don't want to split off and have a different copy of the data, but it is helpful to kind of be able to derive some information and take as much burden off as the data collectors as possible. So our example for this project was our asset inventory collection. So this is our first major project using Collector, and it's also our biggest mobile data collection project to date. It's a statewide project to build an inventory and condition assessment of all the retaining walls, noise walls, what we call non-MBIS pipes, which are pipes that are over 48 inches on all state-maintained roads, which we have about 80,000 miles. And then we're also doing an inventory of smaller pipes, which are under 48 inches and below, and inlets on just the primary system. So we have, I think we're over 45 now, two-person teams out collecting data. And the project's running, the actual data collection is running from September through April of this year, so it's happening right now. So the first step, again, is going to be to create your geodatabase in ArcGIS. And just a couple things I want to point out that I've learned along the way. It's a good idea to have edit tracking and to have as many domains as possible to kind of force data integrity. And then also you want to enable attachments if you want to have your users taking pictures. So the next step is going to be to publish the data to AGOL and also to make all kinds of configurations. So the configuration starts when you're in ArcMap. The first thing you want to do is set up your map document properties. And this is all stuff that can just be done in AGOL, these properties, but it's nice to have it as part of the MXD because then you've got the same information there. But it's basically metadata that you're setting up that will then carry through when you publish the service. You also want to make any kind of like configurations to the individual layers in your map, such as the layer name, the symbology, the zoom scales, although I will recommend that you not be too conservative with these because once you publish it at that zoom scale, you can't change it in ArcGIS Online. You'll have to republish. So I like to keep it pretty loose and then restrict it in the web maps on AGOL. You can change your field visibility, which, again, I would recommend publishing all your fields and then turning them off in Collector, because if you turn them off in an ArcMap, you can't get them back later unless you republish. Any kind of definition queries you might want to have, and my recommendation there is if your definition query is going to be based on a field that they can populate, then make sure you include null in your definition query. So for example, if you had a definition query where county had to equal wake, you'd want to make it county equals wake or county is null. That way, if they don't fill out county, their point doesn't disappear. Or if they can't fill out county because it's something that's post-processed, you still want to be able to see their data in the map. And then finally, there's the service configurations that you make through ArcMap when you go to publish it. So there's not really a lot to do here, especially if you filled out your map document properties. But you want to make sure you're setting it to feature access, not tile mapping. You might fill in some additional metadata that wasn't in the MXD properties. And you can set your sharing here, or you can set it through AGOL. So again, there's lots of configurations. So these are more like the configurations that are happening after the data gets published. So these are going through AGOL. So on the feature layer page or on the data details page, you're going to set your thumbnail. You might want to format your description and add some carriage returns. Make sure that you set your sharing so that you're going to want to create a group that's going to be editing the data and share it to that group. And then, of course, your settings. So over here, these are featured layer settings. You want to turn on editing. allow for sync, and you might want to turn on layer optimization if you have like something like roads that has a lot of linear features to draw. Under the visualization tab, you're going to configure your pop-up, and I spent a lot of time on this section when I'm setting things up for Collector, because again, like I said, if you publish all your fields, you may not want them all to be visible, so you can turn things on or off from being visible. You can make things so that they're visible, but they can't be edited. Like maybe you have an ID number that you want them to be able to see but not change. And then there's like formatting. I've noticed that it will add commas to numeric fields. So if your field is year, you know, like year constructed or something, you can set it to take the comma out so it doesn't look funky. And you can also configure labels on the screen, but this is something you're only going to be doing for the web map. The labels aren't going to show up in Collector at this point. That's coming in the next release, I believe. It's at least the most requested enhancement. Something else that we did was to create a view, and so that we could make configurations to the service URL, because there's some things that you want to do that will make the data work in Collector that'll screw it up in AGOL. So I wanted to be able to allow us to edit the data through an AGOL web map or through Collector. So in Collector, they're accessing the view, but from AGOL, they could just access the feature layer to make changes. And then on the bottom left corner, you'll see this is from the data details page, and this is where you can get to, if you click on service URL, you can make REST service configurations. And it's a little bit complicated process. It feels like you're doing something wrong, but what I've found is the stuff that you do in here you actually need to do if you have required fields. So I put a link on there that has Esri's blog on how to go through the process. But basically what has happened is we've made fields required in the database, and then when it gets to Collector, it doesn't recognize that the field is required, and it doesn't force the user to enter something. So it's putting empty quotes into the field, which is not in the domain, and it's putting empty quotes there because the field's not nullable. So then when you go to synchronize your data, it's seen as an error, we're getting sync issues. But you can come in here to the REST service and make some additional configurations. But basically all you're going to do is put a null in there as the default value for the template, and then it will force the user to pick something else. I'm not doing a good job explaining it, but that blog does a much better job. And then you have configurations to make in the actual web map. So on the details page of the web map, you're going to want to update the metadata. Again, the sharing has to be set there too, in your thumbnail. And then on there's one more additional setting, and that's over here, which is the web map. You want to, inside the web map, you want to enable offline mode if you're not going to be, if your users are going to be downloading the map and working offline, which ours are. And then in the map itself, you're going to be selecting the base map that you want to use, adjusting the field order, renaming the field names or the layer names, and setting the visibility ranges. So like I said, I like to publish the visibility scale wide open and then dial it back in the web map. And you definitely want to do that because it's going to increase performance the less stuff that it's trying to draw. And then finally, we're ready to start using the tablets to collect data. So you're just going to have to train your users on how to use the tablets themselves, the software, the workflow, safety, etc. And so you can see these are just pictures we took during the training, but you can see that the interface for Collector is really similar to what you would see in AGOL. So, in fact, the way to get the map from AGOL to Collector is just download Collector, sign in, and then you can access the map. It's super easy. So coming from ArcPad, this has been really, really nice. So we don't have internet service on the tablets, but all our workflow is based on downloading a county at a time, working offline, synchronizing once or twice a week from a DOT facility. And then we haven't done this part yet because they're still collecting data, but the plan is to do some post-processing after the data collection is done. We'll download the geodatabase to ArcMap, and anything that can be derived. I didn't put ID number on here, but that's another one that we're going to be populating. But some examples are county, route milepost, the length of the feature, the skew angle, like for example the skew of the pipe to the road, like a condition rating score based on a bunch of like assessment criteria. And then we're going to republish that data to AGOL, and we'll turn editing off while we don't want data collection to be happening. And that way everybody can use the data at that point. So in summary, we kind of talked about 3 ways of how we're using AGOL for data collection and maintenance. And basically, like we did with Rockingham County, even though I didn't have the slides for it, we're just creating a simple web map to supplement a spreadsheet as a communication tool. And then we just use the results of that process to actually update our enterprise data. And for online data maintenance, such as tracking locations and material types supplied by various asphalt, aggregate, and concrete suppliers, or to manually correct the results of analysis that generated the estimated inventories for striping and markers. So it's more complex than using it as a communication tool, because in that process we were actually publishing data AGOL, and we're allowing users to edit the data directly in AGOL. And then finally, for mobile data collection, as we did with the asset inventory project, where we're using web maps deployed to collector to build an inventory and condition assessment of DOT assets like pipes and inlets and walls. So we took the editing capability one step further by using collector instead of the web map, and with a more tablet-friendly interface that has GIS and offline capabilities. So it's the most complex in the amount of configuration and training required, but it's also giving us the biggest results, because we have 46 teams out there collecting data for the better part of a year. So hopefully I've kind of showed you some different ways that you can use, or how we're using ArcGIS Online. Here's my contact information. You can reach out to me if you want to talk more about it, or I'm happy to answer any questions you have now.
There is one question, and we don't have very much time left, but one of our attendees wants to know, what are the main reasons that you prefer collector over Survey 123?
We just haven't used Survey 123. I'm interested in trying it out, though.
Okay. And are there any other questions for Faith or for Jeremy or for Lauren from our panelists? We're, I think, right at the edge of our time here. So, but if you type it in quick. All right. Well, it looks like there are not going to be any more questions. This webinar was recorded. It's going to be posted online. Of course, Jeremy and Faith and Lauren don't know this, but they're going to send me their presentation so that we can post those online together with the webinar, so people can download them from the GOTUG website. We have 2 more webinars scheduled for you on March 7th. We're having a webinar at the same time on Wednesday, March 7th, on straight line diagrams. And on Wednesday, June 6th, we have our number 10 webinar scheduled on data maturity models. Aside from those 2 webinars, we're planning on presenting at GIST if our session is selected, and we hope to see a lot of you there. And feel free to encourage other GIS professionals to go to gotug.transportation.org and click on that subscribe button so that they can get notifications of future webinars. And that concludes GOTUG webinar number 8, and we'll see you all in 3 months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lauren and Faith.
Yeah, no problem.